So what are we doing today? Well, it's down here. There, the Toucan. If you were looking at Instagram earlier today and saw the sketch being built, if not, you can see that at any point. If you saw this on LinkedIn earlier, it's got a little bit added to it. I'm just going to take myself off to the left-hand side early. Cool. Off to the left-hand side of the screen. So here is today's sketch that we're working on. We are doing a fab toucan because I love the toucans. Toucan play at that game. Boom. I'm here all week. Now for bingo. Super good. Right, so just having a look at this. You'll notice if you saw this, as I was going to say on Instagram, it's got an additional line. Just here's an extra line because I was, looking at it and thought, oh, that pun hurt you. Sorry, David. You too can draw a toucan. True, Oliver. I added this line here because I was kind of thinking, no, I want to inject a bit more colour just in there. So I'm going to do that around that point. So I guess with one very, very quick comb of the moustache to get that out of the way. Also because, that's why you're here, really. See that? So, Ian, by the way, your fab pen holder's great, but I like to keep it on show for just that thing. So I have to take it into another pen holder over here. Yeah, because, you could always send me another one, like a Batman one. That would be cool. Anyway, right. So I guess we get started with my sketch, which I have brought in like so. Okay. With the sketch that I brought in like so, typically I drop this onto another layer, and I've got a habit I'm trying to break unsuccessfully. I don't like drawing on layers with red guidelines. So what I tend to do is I tend to make my tracing layers, red, which is the second color along from this. If I added a new layer, then I'm going to get red guidelines around it. So what I tend to do is Shift D in the first place, which takes me into draw behind mode. If you don't know what that is just yet, keep watching. You will find out. Maybe in this stream, maybe in another stream, who knows, but you will find out. Basically, there are three draw modes. Draw normal, which is the way you normally work in Illustrator most of the time. Draw behind, which is the mode I've switched into, and draw inside, which requires a selection. But I've gone to draw behind. Illustrator, when it creates a layer, technically starts a drawing on it. So if I do Command L, Control L here to add a new layer, you can see it's added underneath the stack. Okay, I'm then going to use the proxy region just here, drag this item down, onto my layer 2, which I'm then going to double click on the layer here. I typically call this trace, and then I hit template, which will dim this down. 50% might not be enough for this one, so I'm going to go 30 and see how that works out. So I'm going to hit OK because I did put some quite dark lines. Yes, very good. Right, I need to make sure that I go back into draw normal mode so there's no surprises. Okay, so Shift D takes me back into that mode. Effectively, if you haven't got a selection, Shift D will just toggle you between those two modes. It's really handy. Okay, so layer 1, which I'm going to call draw, just there. I just like naming them. It's good practice. Takes like a couple of seconds to do that, but it's organized. And of course, if you're working between other applications, like After Effects, things like that, then it's important to do that. Groovy. Right then. So I guess it's time to start drawing. And the line work is what we're going to do essentially straight off. There's going to be no details. Okay, so curvature pen tool is where I'm going with this. I could spend ages wrestling with the pen tool, but I prefer the curvature pen tool. Okay, so time to start drawing. I'm going to zoom in like so. I think I'll use the trackpad for a minute just to do this one. So I'm going to hold down Shift and hit the backtick key on my keyboard, British and American keyboards. So if you don't have a British or American keyboard, you can always just go in the toolbox to the right, of the pen tool in the 2-up arrangement there, like so. So that's kind of handy to do that. And then we can start plotting some curves. So I'm going to actually start working maybe down here, just about here. And then I'm going to make my way around, okay, the body of the toucan. You can see that as I'm moving along here, I'm just watching the curve. I'm going to make that easier for you to see, okay, by going ahead and increasing the stroke weight dramatically. Especially if you're watching on a phone, okay, that will make it easier for you to go ahead and see. So I'm just going to move along up here. I'm not only watching where the line's going that I'm drawing now, I'm also watching it before the previous point because it will have an effect on that line. So you have to watch both really, but it's still easier, okay, than wrestling with handles. So I'm going to go to about this point here. I'm going to double click at that point because I want to actually make a corner point just there. And I think I'll go around the whole of the outer body here. So what I'm looking for right now is the kind of maxima of a curve. So the apex of a curve. And I think it's about there. Okay, around about that region. So I'm going to click. We'll find out in a minute because if I go to the end of the curve and it fits, then I was bang on. Okay, so I'll click just here. I wasn't too far off. It's very, very close. Of course, with this particular tool, I don't need to switch to another tool to bend the curve around and indeed move the point if I want to. One of the many, many reasons I love this tool so much. I'm going to double click on the point at the end here just to turn that into a corner because I need to draw some other curves. Do you know what? I think I'm going to go the whole way around this way. So let's do that. Okay, so jumping in here like so. I think I'm going to go backwards out of that curve to the wing here like this. I'm not worried about that joint just there. That can be resolved. I say I'm not worried about it. I don't like it, but you know, it is what it is. It's just there. So that's good the way that's going. Do I continue down to the tail? I think I do. I'm going to make sure that I'm drawing another corner. So double click on that. Even if it wasn't, it's easy to go back. Okay, so I'm going to go to this point here. Now, I'm not going to double click this point just to show you that even if I made a mistake here, I'm going to come down to the bottom of the tail and double click just about here. All I need to do is just go back to that point, double click on it, and it's changed. I know I bang on about this tool a lot, but that's because it's so, so awesome. Okay, it really is very, very useful. Okay, so now I'm going to make my way around here. So I'm drawing this small curve here. And I've got a collection of curves to work around. Just here. Okay, so I'm just going to make my way around gently. Hope you're all getting ready for a lovely weekend. It's going to be hot, hot, hot here in the UK, I am told. Which I'm so excited about. Not really, because we're laying a floor in the new studio. We've got a new studio which will be coming online in a couple of weeks' time. So it's built, it's plastered, it's painted. Yeah, it's got electrics in, but not live. So there's sockets everywhere. I was in with the electricians yesterday, letting them know that I changed my mind about the position of the sockets in the audio booth, and they were very happy about that. They were so happy that they stayed till 8 o'clock last night working on it. So thanks, Chris, for doing that, by the way. If you're watching, I doubt you are, but it was appreciated that you accommodated my ridiculous requests so early on. Right, so now I need to draw some other lines down here. Actually, I could go with this curve first. So let's do this one. Let's go just here. This is going to start. So this is this sort of coloured area on the body here. I'm just going to double click there like so. And actually, I might move that point. Let's zoom in so it's nice and easy for you to see. Again, this is mainly if you're watching on a phone. Yeah, let's just get this across like this. Okay. And make my way around here like this. There we go. It's so easy to work like this. Of course, if I was working with the stylus, I'm not just at the moment, but if I was, it would just be tap, tap, tap. Feels very, very natural to be working like that. I'm just going to tap this one in, then I'm actually going to pull this one out over here. I'm going to go back to the first point. Now, I don't want to make a whole shape, so I'm going to hit escape, which stops me drawing. I can then go to this point here, and I'm going to pull that one out just a little bit. Just model this curve just a bit more, because I'm not thrilled with the distancing there, so I want to change. There we go. That's much more like what I'm after. If you're looking at this now and thinking, what is he doing now? Why is he doing that? That's because I want this width to be fairly even around that curve there. That's what I want. I'm going to chop off all the bits that I don't need, okay, in a bit. Smooth the path. It is smoothing the path. I don't actually use, to be honest, because this tool, Anuj, is just so good, okay, I don't use the smooth function very much. On there. I don't like right click and say smooth path. I kind of like that the way it is. Also, I use some other tools to smooth a little bit more intelligently than Illustrator does natively. There we are. Right, okay, I'm going to hit escape again because I want to start a whole new drawing. Now I want to draw the line straight down the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is double click and then just move this point into position, because otherwise if I clicked up there, I would connect with the existing path, okay, and that wouldn't work too well for me, okay, that would not be the best scenario. So I'm going to make my way down to here. I'm going to double click again, make a nice straight point, kind of like where that's going, and then I'm going to start to build this wing, okay, like so. Now I'm just going to deviate off to the left slightly, okay, as I'm seeing it, okay, and then start to make my way around. Now here I run the risk of connecting with this stroke, so I'm going to just click here because I'm drawing a curve, and then bring this back and position it where I want it to be, which is about there. Move a bit further down, click, move a bit further down, click about here, move a bit further in and click. Right, okay, now that's pretty good. I'm going to bring that in, but I need to examine that more closely. I mean, obviously I want to get some sort of result for you, and I have like an hour and a half. So if I was actually working on this for a client, I might, well, there's no might about it. I would definitely be spending more time on analysing these lines. In fact, there's one here which is kind of superfluous. If I wanted to, I could bring this line into this point here. You can see both strokes lining up just there at the moment, and that would work perfectly, okay, for me. Actually, what I'm going to do is switch to my direct selection tool. I'm going to tap A on my keyboard here to get to the direct selection tool. I'm going to just click on this line segment, which I think is kind of superfluous, and then just delete it. Okay, so that line segment is now out of the frame. I'm going to go back to this path, also pick up again my curvature pen tool. Then I can move this point into place. So I'm just going to grab that like so and take that down to connect with the end of that line just there. Perfect. I think that will work really, really well. Now, if I wanted to, I could always join those two things together if I don't join naturally. Let's get this line segment just here. That's going to be fine the way it is. I like that. Just there. We're going to come back up to the top in a moment. I think, in fact, why not? Let's do that now. So, I'm going to need to make another path along here. Now, I could, there's nothing to stop me actually using part of this line segment here. I could go ahead. In fact, let's select that line segment, direct selection tool. It's important, it's not the main selection tool, direct selection tool. I'm going to click this line segment with my direct selection tool. I'm going to hold down Shift and click the line segment next to it. Okay, so I've got that line segment just there. I'm going to copy that. Okay, and then I'm going to paste in front. So Command F, Control F on Windows. And just so you can see it, I'm going to make it a different color. There we are. Now, I'm going to move to a point on here with my scissors tool. So I've tapped C on my keyboard to get the scissors tool, and I want to try and work out where I'm going to start deviating from this line. So I'm just going to click on the end just there. That gives me those points. Delete once, and it leaves me one trailing point. So I'm going to delete that one as well. Okay, so now I've got that. What I can do here, actually, I could snip away the other end as well. So let's just go for that. Let's just cut just that one. I'm a bit worried that I might cut other paths. So I'm going to select these two. Okay, so this magenta one here and this one here. I'm going to join them together. Command J, Control J on Windows. And then I'm going to isolate them. Okay, I'm going to double click. And Steve's saying, with birds like toucans, you can go wild with many colours. I had no idea how many subspecies there were of toucans, Steve. Crazy amount of subspecies, just amazing. So I've just cut at the end there. Okay, so I've just snipped away the parts that I don't want there. I maybe should have gone a little bit. Do you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to go just a little bit further back. I'm going to take a really short amount off of that there. Okay, so there we are. I've got that. I'm going to just chop away this piece here. Now, in my normal working practice, as a lot of you know, not everybody, but as a lot of you know, in my normal working practice, I use a whole bunch of different plugins, okay, for my day-to-day work. And what I'm looking at doing at the moment, and this would be an interesting thing for me to, let me just do a quick save on this, by the way, before Annika Argwell gets in and says about the whole saving thing. So let's just do, let's call it Toucan play at that game. There we are. That's the name of this file. Puns are free today. Going back to the curvature pen tool now and starting to draw this. So I'm deviating away from that line just a little bit. I'm a bit worried about connecting with this path. So I'm just going to move this into place to where I want it to be. And of course, this is a sketch, so it's entirely flexible from my point of view. Right, I'm going to match this one up because that point just blew that across. So you can see here, by the way, it's snapping to the path above. So that's a very useful side effect of this particular thing. Keeping those things connected there, just double checking. And that's hooked up. It is nice. Right, so next let's do some work on the interior of the beak. So I'm just clicking here because this is going to be a curve, like so. And positioning that pretty much where I want it, which is around about there. Actually, do you know what? I think I'm going to travel the whole way out with this one. Let's go to there because I do want that to connect at that point. There we are. That's nice. That's going to work pretty well. There's going to be some flexibility in this. It's also tricky because I'm using nice big strokes. Loads of applause and hearts. This is good news. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape because I'm going to start drawing another path. So I'm going to double click here and bring that point into play. If you're using the traditional pen tool and just thinking, wow, this looks really easy. Do you know what? That's because it actually is. It's easy. It's a lot easier. I've so rarely use the natural pen tool these days. By that, I mean the default pen tool inside of Illustrator. I'm going to hit escape. I'm looking forward to the day, super hint for someone in the chat, when I can actually start talking about another type of drawing input and be using that live on the stream. And in the new setup, in the new studio, there's a new camera setup going in there. There's Chloe's coming back to work as well, for those of you that follow the antics of my studio. Chloe, my daughter, has been on maternity leave for many months. I told her she could actually have the whole year off, but she wants to come back to work. And Sean's saying, I hardly use the default pen tool also, and it's just so easy. And don't forget that this tool is also in Photoshop It's not like it's just in Illustrator alone. It's in Photoshop. Sandrine still hasn't got around to using the curvature tool. Maybe too easy for me. I like to make my life difficult, really. So, Dave's being very quiet on here. Dave, are you still on? Not any of the Daves that are my friends on here. Alan uses AE tools instead. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, let's bring this in. So I'm just bringing in all of these paths just here. I'm actually going to draw a path outside of where I want this to be. I think that's just connected, but it doesn't really matter. Just to draw this segment here, making that smooth. There we go. That's nice. Now what I could do here, and I will do in a minute, is snip away some of the extra parts of paths. Again, I'd use a slightly different tool for that. But anyway, right, back to the curvature pen tool. And again, just dropping points in here and just moving things around. It's like playing with wire. That's the way I look at it. It's almost as if you've got a piece of wire. Now, there is another tool that I use, which is also like playing with wire. Wire, not fire, by the way. And I love that. It allows me to reform different shapes and parts of line segments easily. I'm a massive fan. Right, so getting close now to where I want to be. So I want a few lines in here, so I'm going to double click here. These are going to be straight lines, so double click again here and then divide this up. So I'm going to go back to the first point here. Nice. Hitting the escape key, double clicking again, going up to where I want this to begin, kind of, and then where I want it to end, sort of about there. Hitting escape again because I don't need to create a closed path. And they're just pulling this around till it kind of looks right, really. Which I think it will if Command key down there, making a selection of that particular line. Moving that around. They don't have to be dead regularly spaced. It's not the way that's going to work. Doing a quick save. Nice. Oh, I think I've actually plotted a separate point. Just there. I think I have. Definitely have. So doing a quick save. Okay, so where are we so far? We're not far off of getting this ready to start adding some colour. Okay, which is good. I'm now going to start drawing this eye here. So I'm going to just go to where I think the middle of the eye should be, holding down Option and Shift, drawing outwards, keeping the long, thick strokes on at the moment because it's easier for you to see. Okay, path, I am going to choose to offset this path. So the offset path command rather than the effect. Why am I using that? Well, because I actually want the second shape. Okay, and if I use the command, it will generate me a copy automatically, which is completely disassociated with the shapes there. Just going to make some adjustments here with the curvature pen tool. I do want that line to come across and meet that one, like so. And I want to make a slight adjustment here. Right, that's kinked that one out, but easily resolved. Going to delete the line underneath and add a new one. I think there's a corner here. There we go. So that's how easy that is to troubleshoot. Very, very simple. Going to double click here just to add a new straight point and then bend this curve in just to get that where I want it to be. Round about there. There we are. Super good. Right, that's working quite well so far. Of course, we've got a whole load of colouring and stuff to do. Yeah, right. So I'm going to draw a rectangle like this. I'm going to change the stroke colour here again so you can see where I am working. Let's have a different stroke colour for a minute. Let's not, because that's so easy to see. And let's zoom in. So what I'm after drawing now, okay, is the middle knuckle of the talons, or no, they're not talons because it's not a bird of prey, but let's say the feet. There we go. Let's use a simple anatomical term for this. So the feet, Okay, we're drawing that and we're representing that by 3 shapes together. Okay, and I'm just going to use I could use the corner widgets at this point, but don't want to. I instead want to use the pen tool. Okay, I'm just going to move this down, right, out of the way. So I'm using the shift key. I'm moving this out of the way because I don't want it to interact with any other paths. I'm going to tap P on my keyboard to use the pen tool that we were talking about earlier, the old pen tool, the agony of the feet. Right, so Smart Guide's here helping me out because I'm going to add a point to this path. So my Smart Guide is showing me I'm now aligned with the center of that object, which is why I moved it away. I'm going to click just there to add a point just there. I'm then going to move over to the side here to the opposite side. And then I'm going to click to add a point just there. So I've added 2 anchor points there. Now there is a command inside of Illustrator which allows you to add anchor points, and it will add 1 point between any other pair of points. And it's a useful command to have, okay? But that would introduce points at the top here that I do not need. So I did it this way manually. Switching to the direct selection tool by tapping A on my keyboard and dragging a marquee across the 2 points that I've added. Hopefully there's enough contrast here for you to be able to see those blue lines against the magenta of the stroke there. If not, just let me know. Click, click, boom. Indeed. Right, so I have those 2 anchor points selected. I'm going to tap S, which gets me the scale tool, which plots itself a transformation point natively in between, in the geometrical center of any selection, which with these 2 things here means it's going to go just there. And I'm going to drag outwards a little bit like so. Okay, that's working quite well. Then switching to my selection tool and clicking away. Reason I'm switching from the selection tool to do that first is because what I want to do is I want to select the object again. So now I have all of the points with the selection, then tap A on my keyboard to get the direct selection tool, which activates the corner widgets like so. And then I can bring those in like that, get a bit of a curve thing going on. And I think that's going to work pretty well. I mean, the stroke there is very, very, very bold for your viewing comfort. However, it's not going to work out too well with what I need to do next. So I am going to drop that stroke weight down just a bit. Okay, so in fact, by about a quarter rather. Okay, now I've got that. I am going to hold down the Option key, drag a copy across like so. Okay, and I'm going to scale that down slightly. So I'm holding down the Option key to draw from the center and just dragging that in like that. That works pretty well. And then Option drag a copy over to the side. And then going to select all 3 of those things. Now, I mean, if I wanted a bit of variation here, by the way, just so it wasn't too regular, a quick way to do that would be to just tilt it over on either side and maybe make one slightly narrower than the other, because those things happen. We're not, although this is a kind of a geometrical toucan, there's still expectations that viewers have when they're looking at something. You know, we see a lot more. I mean, us as designers and illustrators and all of those things, we see lots of stuff that everybody else doesn't see, like dead people. Kidding, right? But we see lots of stuff, but ordinary people see more than you think. In fact, I remember reading a great treatise on typography, yeah, and about how connected people with no typographic knowledge are to type. Very, very interesting thing. Anyway, I digress. I've selected all 3 of those. I'm then going to hold down Shift and tap M on my keyboard. There we go. And now I can go ahead and work with that. Now, what I could do technically here is just drag across all 3 to achieve that result. So you can see I've now got one shape, or, you know, it's taken away the parts that I don't want. Just in case it was more complicated than that and you needed to get rid of segments, as I'm going to in a moment. Okay, what you can do is if you hold down the Option key, yeah, you can go for line segments. You can see that ordinarily it's not showing me, right, any highlighting across there. I'm going to change the stroke colors here just for a second to blue. Okay. They won't change because I still have the shape builder selected. I'm going to change these to blah. Actually, I'm going to change them to very dark blue because that way you can still see the strokes there, hopefully. Right, let me go back to the shape builder tool and show you what I mean here. So if I hover over this stroke, you can see it's not giving me any feedback. If I go to shapes, then I get the grid feedback here. When I hold down the option key, it says, okay, you want to play with strokes then. And now you can see this highlighting. I know I had to change the colors a couple of times there, but I wanted you to see what I'm seeing, yeah, depending on what you're watching it on. Then I can click and it takes that away. So that is very, very useful. In fact, I'm going to bring this back now so I'm holding down the shift key to move this shape quicker. I'm going to move it up to about that point there. I'm going to option drag copy and bring that into about there. Make it a tad smaller. Something like that is good. It's too small. There we go, just a little bit smaller. And I now feel inclined to move this one up further away and also to roll it around slightly. There we go. Let's have a quick look at where we are. Actually, I think we're pretty good now to start trimming. So I'm going to hold down the Command key, tap A to select everything, hold down Shift and tap M to go back to the Shape Builder tool. Let's zoom in and now start snipping away some areas that we don't need. So I'm just going to trim away these paths just here, like so, just the ones in between the claws, just there, that I couldn't remember the name of a minute ago. I don't want that additional part just there. Let's go up to here. I do want that part just there. I nearly trimmed away a part that was essential, wouldn't be the first time. Okay, or indeed the last. And let's just have a look through, and I think that's pretty much okay. Right, so now that I've got all of those, I'm going to give those a uniform stroke color. And actually, I don't like any of the colors I've got there. So I'm going to do what I normally do, okay, which is head towards plum, sort of purpley plummy color there, like so, and then make it dark, but with just a hint of that color in it. In fact, sometimes also just a bit more towards purple. I think plum's going to work better though. There we are. Even though it's near black, yeah, it works really well. Holding Alt to delete the strokes, that is. It's really handy. Nice, says Angus. Nice. Yes. It's useful. I mean, even if you pick up one thing on here, right? There's value in that. Yeah. It's one thing you take away that might change your entire workflow. Angus realizes he doesn't use the shape builder enough. So useful. Okay, I'm going to go to the color panel here, which has got my color in it. I'm going to create a new swatch based on that. I don't want to make this one global. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Okay, just to add that new swatch because I might want it a bit later on. Okay, good. So now I've got all of those strokes together. I've got other things to draw. Okay, actually, shall I do that now? I'm kind of late breaking decision, folks. I want to draw something else first. I'm going to draw this this thing here. By the way, this is going into a poster size document later on. Okay, but just for now, keeping it this way because having a document this size or this sort of these proportions makes it easier for you to see, and by extension fills the screen when I do Command 0, Control 0. One more thing I didn't have before this stream. There we are. That's cool. Thanks, Sean. Right, okay, I've hit escape just there. I'm now going to change the stroke color because I need to, just for what I'm doing next. And then I'm going to make this bigger. Wide, like so, something like that. Might actually add a little bit of variation into that. So I'm going to switch to the width tool. Shift W gets me the width tool. I'm going to come along and just make a couple of small changes here, just just a couple of slight variations in the width going along. Of course, this would get wider towards the end if it was a real branch. So I'm going to do that. There you go. That's worked pretty well. Then I'm going to outline that stroke. Now that's normally in path. So object, path submenu, outline stroke. You can see that with my own shortcuts, I've added one to that I think normally is attached to browsing bridge. If I want bridge, I'll just launch it. I don't need a command to browsing bridge. So I swapped it over and assigned it to outline stroke because that's something I use far more often than bridge. Now I need to make another change or two in here. So I'm going to hold down Shift and tap X to swap the fill and stroke over. Let's make it a bit heavier so you can see both. Just there. And we'll just do a little bit more shape builder goodness in here. I might send it to the back also. Let's go ahead and select that and send to the back. So that's Shift command or Shift control left bracket to do that. Right, let's go back to that shape builder tool, holding down the Option key because it's allowing me to make these cuts like so. So I'm just snipping away anything here. Oh, do I need that one? I need that one where it was. So I'm just going to undo that. Let's take away this one, the ones in between. So you have to think about what you're doing here and just full information. If I wanted to, I could have done this in Live Paint. Okay, so that wing is going to be on the front side here. It's just making it easy for me to work with. There we are. Shall we draw the leaves before we start colouring in? I think I'm going to add that on afterwards. I'm just going to let's get to colouring up. Because how are we at? 58. We've got 32 minutes. So quick save just to update the document. And then let's go ahead and start colouring up. So I'm selecting the whole thing just here. I am going to change the stroke weight now just to make it easier to work with. So I'm going to something that hopefully you can still see. 6 points. Just there is good. In fact, some of the strokes will be missing in a minute. Okay, so I am going to turn this into a Live Paint object. The ways I can do that are two. If I have a butler, I could say, go to the object menu, go down to Live Paint and choose Make. Or you can use the shortcut Option command, that's Alt Control if you're on Windows, and X. Okay, and that will create you a Live Paint group. Here's that command. I've made that already, but here you can see Live Paint Make is at the top there, just in case your shortcut is mapped slightly differently. Okay, and you can tell you've got a Live Paint group because you get these funky little icons on all of the bounding box handles. It's still a bounding box, still with transformation stuff, right? So you can still do crazy stuff with it, okay, if you want to, but Live Paint, so good. Okay, so I'm going to need some colors to work with here. So I think I'm going to make decisions of my base colors. In fact, I might make a couple of decisions on them right now. What I'm going to do is just draw some rectangles here just for a minute. So I'm just using Command D there, Control D on Windows to go ahead and change those colors. Shift X to transpose their fill and stroke. And then I'm going to mix the first of my colors. So I want something towards the range of purple. Not quite as dark as what I was using before. I want it to be heavily saturated. So what I'm doing is I'm moving my cursor across to the left inside the grid here. And just trying to get something I like. Because in the area I'm going to start colouring in, the main body area of this, a toucan would be quite dark. Of course, this is a graphic piece, so I've got loads of artistic license. Right, so I've made that colour just there. Now I want some variations on that colour. So I'm going to go to my colour guide. Okay, just here. The thing that annoys me, and I'm speaking to the product manager next week, because he's heard this sermon from me before. Yeah. Okay, but Avnash, just in case you're watching, you can hear it again next week. Okay, I want an easier way to change the number of variations in here right, than going, okay, to the flyout menu and choosing color guide options and then changing the value to my preferred, which is either 8 or 9, like so, 8, 9, 10, something like that, and then hitting OK. Right. I'm sure you could drop a little slider, even when this is at its own natural size, which is that. I'm sure you could put a tiny little slider in there. Come on. So we could change the amount of variation. Anyway, I've clicked here to set the current color, the base color for this, okay, to the color of the object I have selected. Now that that is the case, I can deselect that, and then I'm going to choose a color harmony. Now, as it happens, in the main at the moment, I really want the top row there, the things related to the root color. But let's have a quick look through some of the color harmonies we've got to work with here. Okay, from this drop down, which is actually surprisingly difficult to make bigger. I'm trying to make it bigger, but it's going for the whole panel. Okay, right, so we'll have to scroll through. You can see here lots and lots of little variations. I do want something that is fairly high contrast. I'm also wondering if I want something like a pentagram. Let's go with, I mean, it doesn't mean you can only use these colors. I'm just trying to get something to go with the body that I'm working with at the moment. And I think I'm going to start with this high contrast 3, just here for those variations. And then I'm going to pick out some colors. So the middle color here, that's going to be the darkest color I'm likely to want. And there, so I'm going to click on that one. Now, if I wanted a contiguous range, so a neighboring range, I could hold down Shift to select a range like that. However, I don't want a contiguous range. Okay, I want a range of my own design. In fact, I might actually go a bit darker with that. So I'm going to hold down Command, that would be Control on Windows, and then select the colors that I want. These may change as I go. I'm just going to pick up a few of these that I like. I don't actually want that one, but these I do. I think that's kind of good. Do I want anything from that darker range? Turns out I do. Turns out I do. Then I'm going to add these to my swatches. Of course, if you wanted to add them to a Creative Cloud library, you could do that just there. But I want to just add these to this document swatches. I'm going to do that. They're now added to my swatches as a color group. Just there, so I've got plenty to work with. Nice. And it's an idea sometimes. I'm going to drag some colors on here, but I don't think I will. So I was going to drag little spot colors onto there, but I think I'm going to just make it easier on all of us. Okay, by tapping K for my live paint bucket, you can see that it's seeing all of these lovely regions like so, so we can start coloring up. So I'm going to go for something nice and dark just here and start working with this. I'm going to go for the darkest one of those. I'm going to choose something lighter either side of that, only a fraction lighter. Yeah, not like crazily lighter, but just a little bit lighter. In the color guide, can you make them global? You can't in the color guide, Sean. That is a really good question. That's my question of the day so far. Do you want to know how to do that? Because I'll show you. I'm just going to suspend my operation here on coloring this in. If you want to make a range of colors global, you can select that range. So I clicked on the first one here and shift clicked the last one. You can then go to swatch options from the flyout attached to the swatches panel. Okay. And then you can turn on global there and it will make all of those swatches global. Okay. So that's how you do it basically. And it will do all of that stuff for you. So I hope that helped with what you want to do. Okay, so back to the live paint bucket. I think here what I'm going to do is this is going to get progressively lighter as it moves out like so. Okay, there you go, just a little bit, tiny little bit. You're welcome, Sean. That's what I'm here for, man, is for you to learn a bit more. So I love it when I get questions like that. It wouldn't occur to me normally. I'd just think, ugh. And then we can start making some other colors. Now, I think what I might do, this sort of orangey color here, I'm going to use this down on the feet here. I'm trying to keep some kind of relationship between that root color, okay, and the color here. So I've made those slightly lighter just there. Might try that one for that branch. Ugh, no. I think we'll go with, no, I'm going to undo that twice. I'm going to find another colour in just a moment. Okay, so I am going to go back to my root colour here. I'm just clicking on that swatch and then going back to the colour guide, making sure that's the root colour. So now I need another deviation. I'm choosing them from here because I want them to be kind of related, okay, to the colours I've got before. So I'm just having a quick scroll through and seeing what I might use from here. Kind of like this group with the greens and that in, but I also like high contrast. I'm going to choose high contrast, going with it. Okay, now I've got the vast majority of these colours up here. However, there are variations I could choose. So I could choose show warm and cool variants on there, which I might do in just a second. I can also say show me vivid and muted. Now what you get there in both of those cases will depend on the root colour. If you've got a colour that is super saturated already, yeah, you're not going to get much variation on the vivid side. And you're not going to get much variation on either the warm or cool side, depending on which way it leans towards. I am going to choose show warm and cool because there's some exciting variations in there. Again, important here that I've got nothing selected, or else I'm going to just see all of the artwork changing underneath. So I really like that. In fact, I like all of those colours. Just there, I'm just picking out a whole load. One of these might work for that branch. I'm going to go that good relationship there with those. Let's pick a few out of here, like these also. A couple of these. I'm also thinking about some shading operations I might do later on. Those are groovy, so I'm going to add those. They're now there in my swatches. Just to show you, you can see that group just there. I can go back to my colour guide because I thought, do you know what? I did kind of like some of the things in vivid and muted. Then I could pick those, although I think they're pretty well represented. I'm just going to take that back to the most commonly used here. Right, tints and shade. Toucan do it. Ah, so good. So good. Right then. Okay, so I've got all the colours I need to proceed, I think, pretty much. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on that. So K again for my paint bucket. I've got my swatches handy here. I'm just going to try one of these out for that branch. I like that. Of course, the thing that's throwing me there is the stroke business that's going on, but that's fine. Just for the moment, it's all good. Okay. If I wanted to get rid of that, I could. In fact, I'm going to show you how. Shift L on my keyboard, L for Lima, gets me the live paint selection tool, right? And I can click there and it selects like so. Right, so you can see here that I've selected that shape. I can also select this stroke as well if I want to, right? So I can select segments of that. But I'm going to select the shape. It's actually not showing me any connection there at all to the stroke around it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the stroke here. Let's try select same stroke color and see what we get. Ooh, we get all of that. So I'm just going to say, go away. It got rid of everything. So let's just try a value of none. I didn't have the selection active, so that's not going to work terribly well. Also, good point here is to make sure that you can see all of the artwork because we don't want any surprises. Same stroke color. Okay, so that's got all of that stroke. I'm then going to hit the slash key because my stroke is in front, has focus in the toolbar. And there we go. So now I've just got rid of the stroke in those areas. So it's all good. Okay, back to the live paint bucket. Let's go ahead and start adding some more color into this. So definitely want to add some of that yellow in there. Then I just wonder how this red is going to go here. Let's just try that out. See, I don't think it's strong enough. That's kind of nice. I'm going to go with that for the moment anyway. I do want another color that isn't in that harmony. Just here. Going with that. And then typically, toucans have like an orangey segment here. Or this particular kind of toucan does, because there's loads and they've got green bills and all sorts. I'm not liking that yellow color as much as I thought I did, so I think I'm going to swap out to the color panel and just boost that up a little bit. So I'm taking all of the green, all of the red out of that, which gives me, the product is green. Yeah, I think it needs that extra bit of contrast just there. Now this piece here is going to be orangey as well. Let's go back to my swatches. I think I've got a fairly light orange there. Oh, sorry, wrong bit. This piece here, the eye, we're going to do something cool with in a minute. So let's just go with a brown for that. Mine's just kind of dull because this piece can also be green. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it light green. All the colors, all the time. Let's go with that just there. Let's go with my very dark but not black color in there. If I choose it, there we go. Something like that. This area here could be any one of a range of colors. I'm just going to go for my color guide panel and pick something that's near white for that. I think that works. Okay, so we've got that. All right, so now if I wanted to, I've just selected the whole live paint group here. If I want to, now that those regions exist and the live paint has recognized the regions, they don't actually need the strokes. Yeah, so if I didn't want them, okay, I could go ahead and bring my strokes into focus. So just tapping X to bring those to the front and then hit the slash key. And suddenly you can see I've got a whole different thing going on there without the big strokes. Okay, so we have all of that like so. Okay, so I'm sticking with flat colors here today as well. No gradients. Don't like the claws at all now. So I'm going to change those. And I think what I'm going to do is hold down the Option key to sample that orange color from there. Then I'm going to go to my color panel. Sorry, I've gone to the color guide. And I think I am going to boost the yellow there for a minute. I do want it to be a sort of a more fiery orange. Taking the green out of that, switching across to my color guide. And then I'm just going to pick some colors from here. So I'm just going to pick this color and drop this in. Yeah, I think that's much, much better. I think these colors are much, much nicer. Yeah, that next to that branch, I think that added a flatness that I really didn't want. Just there. How's that working? Let's do a quick save. I'm not going to worry about the plant just for now. I'm going to add that later on. I think what I'm going to do is add a bit of a background into this because we are getting into the narrow end of this. Oh, I said we were going to do the cool thing with the eye. Actually, we are going to do a cool thing with the eye. So what I need to do then is I need to expand this live paint group to actually turn it into real shapes. Okay, so here it goes. I'm hitting expand from the quick actions area. Like that. And now it creates a group. So in my quick actions area, I'm going to quick click ungroup there as well. So now that's all ungrouped. Okay, I want to move this out of the way by a predictable amount. I've got the selection tool active, so I'm going to hit return so I can access the numeric values of this. Horizontally, I want to move it by minus, let's go 150 and hit tab. That's great where it is. Vertically, 0. So 150 is how far I want to move that across. Okay, so it's just going to move 150 millimeters. I'm going to say OK. Now that's a compound path that it's created there because that's what the result of that flattening operation is. To do what I'm going to do here, I need to release that compound path. So I'm then going to join that together so it becomes one shape. And it wouldn't be a draw this in Illustrator stream without me dipping into the appearance panel. My friend Radim Milinic calls me up and says, you do all that appearance stuff, right? That's the cool stuff. It's the cool stuff. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add a new fill. So Command / undocumented shortcut. If you've watched my streams for a while, you're probably bored with me saying that, but it's true. Highlander 7, the flattening. Excellent. So I've got that new fill on top there. I could also click the button down here just in case you can't use a keyboard for whatever reason. And then I'm going to go to my color guide, setting that as the root color. And I want to choose something maybe darker. Like so. Something like that. Okay, so that's my fill just there. Okay, so I've got this darker fill on top of, okay, this lighter fill. So what am I going to do just here? Well, I'm going to go to the Effects tab. I am going to choose Distort and Transform, Pucker and Bloat. And that's pucker as in, not as in, oh, that's pucker, mate. Yeah. You'd have to be British to know what I'm referring to there. Got preview going on. That's kind of nice. There we go. So I've puckered that shape up like so. Maybe just a tad more. Let's see if I can squeeze. Don't want to go too far with it. Okay, I think that's about as far as I'm going to get with that. So that's puckered up like so. I'm then going to make sure that I'm still targeting that same fill when I go for my next command, which is Distort and Transform. Transform. And then I'm going to use the keyboard to do this because it's more efficient. For a moment there, I thought Jamie Oliver was like, what with pucker? I'm not a fan of Jamie Oliver, particularly Oliver. That was a sentence and a half. He used to really like one of my girlfriends, and they used to have to work together sometimes, and he was always trying to chat her up. It used to just irk me. Irked I was. So I've gone to 51% there. Okay, that's good, but not great. I'm going to go back to the pucker and bloat because I want to change it. I'm going to bring that out a little way, like so. There we go, something like that. It's just too narrow. There, I've gone to 70%. I'm just going to change the transform just here as well, so that can afford to be a little bit larger. There we are, something like that. 60% is good. I'm making it the same on both sides, so it's not boring. Now, I already have a pucker and bloat and transform effect applied to this, but I'm going to apply an additional transform effect. So distort and transform. Transform. This gives me a warning telling me that I've already got one. Okay, do I want to apply a new one? And the reason it does this is because people think when they've applied it, that's how they edit it. But as you've seen, that's not how you edit it. You go over here and click on it, and that's a hyperlink through to the panel where you edit. But I do want a new instance, okay, of this effect. So I'm going to say apply new effect, like so. I'm then going to introduce a number of copies. Let's go with maybe 12. Yeah, something like that. Or 11, actually, will be easier. Right, so I'm just dialing that up like so. So I'm going to change the number of copies just here. That's working kind of well. I think I might scale that down still a little bit. Whoa, you see if I do that, it's going to go crazy. Unless I do it symmetrically. Let's just go ahead and go 99. 99. Yeah, you see it's still going to do it because I need to do something like correcting this. So I'm just going to reset this back to 100. Woo! Free singing. 1001, no. You have to be really careful because this thing can go very, very busy, and that needs to be reset back to the center. So now you can see I've got that working exactly the same way. They're creating this nice little shape. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. Now I could do loads more with that. I could go ahead and change the opacity there as well, just of that particular fill, just to add a little bit to it. And you see that just adds a nice little, oops-a-daisy, a nice little detail. I've accidentally added a mask to that, so I need to just undo. Adds a nice little detail to that. Okay, so now I have that thing targeted. I can then go and select it, hit return. I can change that minus, just knock the minus off the front of there. So it's going to move it 150 millimeters across. Hit return. So that's already back in the right place. Just going to send it to the back. And there it is. It's added that nice little detail without me drawing an additional shape. So if things would change in there in any way, I don't have to go and change a whole load of shapes to do it. No, I could change it. I could change any aspect of that Uma, to be honest. Anything I wanted to do there. So I could go back to the first transform and modify that one. So I could change the size there, bring that down, and it would have a cascading effect on the other things. But I would need to calculate that slightly differently to the way I did it. There you are. Oh, additionally, just so you know, if I wanted that to be darker, let's just make that dark grey. Right, so let's change the blending mode here, okay, to maybe overlay. Yeah. That means if the root colour underneath changes, maybe something like this, you can see I've got that flexibility there, and it will change for me. It will inherit the earlier things. There we go. That is it for today. I hope